Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gascleese Davis here with another episode of Enough to Keep Going, our garage band podcast that we broadcast live from our various basements, recreational areas, bedrooms. I don't know. You might be wondering who we are. Well, let me tell you. You might think that we sit around and play games all day, and we would certainly love to, but we work, we do housework, we do yard work, we rock babies to sleep. And once that's all done, man, when we sit down in front of that DIY gaming PC or Xbox One or Nintendo Switch, that's good gaming. Now, we're also equal opportunity gamers. So, all you single people out there, we're here to cater to you too. But you married folks, you family guys and ladies, we get you. Right here in the heart, man. DBQ, here with me to co-host, back from Safari. How you doing, DB?
Oh, Safari. That would be nice, right? So yes, talk about that is the perfect intro for my life over the last couple of weeks, is that it was so much more about life than about enjoyment. So back behind me, I've been playing a giant floor plan version of Tetris over the past weekend as I was recarpeting my basement. So yes, I've been off for the past couple weeks. I am sorry. Thank you for understanding and being flexible. So I'm glad to be back with you guys talking about games and life and the realities of what happens when your basement floods in the middle of January. So that has been my existence, but you guys have kept this show rolling, and I've had a chance to listen a little bit as I've been working on a variety of house projects, trying to put the pieces of life back together. So, and Prime, you've been here the whole time. You've been the rock keeping us together. So, anchored down by that beard of yours, just
That's right.
So how have you been, sir?
I've been good. The beard is growing. It's getting longer. So we'll see how long I can grow it. No, but yeah, I've been good. Had a good week. So I got lots to talk about, actually, for my games coming up here. So hopefully we'll get rolling here in a minute. Please, how was your week?
Yeah, I've had better.
All right. You've had worse, better, so that's good.
Yeah.
Just kind of meh.
Yeah, I don't know. We had stuff. I probably got a little carpal tunnel going on. Trying to sort some things out on the job. So, but wherever you are, there you go, right?
That's right.
Now, I think of myself as the eclectic gamer. I'm the guy who never sticks with anything for more than 5 to 30 minutes. DB, I think of you as the precision gamer. You're the classic fighter sitting there picking your enemy apart with jabs, precisely choosing what you're going to play on your playlist and going through it with immaculate precision.
Oh, that sounds so kind and generous.
He's got that spreadsheet to work on.
And Prime, I think of you as the carpet bomber gamer. You are the guy who in my opinion, just my assessment of our years together, you're the guy who goes in whole hog on a thing. And that thing occupies large blocks of time and focus. I know it's not like that all the time, but that's just my means of conveying to the listeners who we are. So first off, let's start right away with the person who's not here, Swissguard. Was on the schedule today. He was going to report out on his Swiss Plays assignment from the last Gamer Experience show, the part 2 of January. And he's had some schedule conflicts, wasn't able to get that in. So we did some swaps and some shifts and some shuffles. He will be back for the Gamer Experience show part 2. Excuse me, at the bottom half of February to report out on that. So we don't really have any report out tonight for those who are following the show. And I know that some of you are, because we got a new subscriber who added us on YouTube. Thank you very much, whoever you are. We really appreciate it. Hopefully it's not one of us subscribing under a different alternate YouTube profile. I don't think it is. We don't do stuff like that. But so unfortunately, Swissguard could not be here with us tonight. So the rest of us are going to go through our playlist and also concurrently talk about any of the emotions and the feels and the dynamics and the things that were shaken out into daylight while we played these various games. So Prime, we're going to get started with you to talk us through your recent experiences playing PUBG.
Oh, yeah. I talk about carpet bomb in a game. That's my game right now. Yeah, so I've been playing PUBG. Obviously, I'm an Xbox One X. I'm really liking the system so far. It's really fast. Really, I think I mentioned this before on PUBG. At least the graphics are definitely an improvement, so that's good. Yeah, but I've just been going through that. I actually got a win in this past week, which it's been a while. It's not easy getting a win here. So I believe it was a duo. So you can do duo, squad of 4, or solo. So I got a duo win. So I think I'm up to either 3 or 4 on duos. So that was finally nice because it's been at least a few weeks since I had actually got a win, a chicken dinner as they call it. So still trying to get that solo win. I got pretty close a couple times. I got like 2nd and I think 5th on 2 games, so that was pretty good. But every once in a while, I like to throw the clips up on the our little communications channel here, Flock. So I think you've seen a couple of those. Just my goofy clips I like to take, and actually on my Xbox feed too. I'll throw them up there. Probably a lot more. I don't want to like carpet bomb the feed here, so I throw up on Xbox Live activity feed a little bit more. But yeah, I'm still having fun with this. Still only one, and it's kind of amazing because there's still only one map that they've released, at least on the Xbox side. They got 2 on the PC side. There's like a desert map that they've released, pretty close to when the Xbox version came out. And I know there was I guess there's been some issues with that because it was a little bit more wide open and not a lot of terrain to kind of hide behind and buildings to go in. So it looks like they fixed that with an update, but hopefully we'll get that map and fully fixed coming up here soon. They haven't really mentioned anything that it's going to come out anytime soon, but hopefully it will be. But yeah, I'm still having fun with just the one map. It's huge, so there's still parts that I still haven't seen yet. So
was there a recent update in the last 2 weeks?
I believe there. I think it was a small one though. It was just kind of minor bug fixes and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. There was actually 2. There was one that fixed, or one that kind of nerfed how much damage you would take when you got hit by a vehicle. And I guess people started crying about that because, you were pretty much one hit and you're dead before. And then they nerfed it where that wasn't the case, even though I didn't experience it after the patch. I hadn't got hit by a vehicle, but then they reversed it basically and put it back pretty much how it was, where it was just like one hit and you're gone. So I guess people were crying over it. They decided to reverse it.
So over the last months of you talking about this game, you still haven't sold me on it. You don't have to. That's not your job. But I want to ask, so now that it's out of beta or whatever it was, this is one of the things that doesn't sell me on it, so to speak. Is just I tend to walk a wide path around these games that come out in these kind of wonky, unclear, like, is it released, is it not released kind of states.
It's still game preview on the Xbox.
Okay, whatever the heck that means. So
it's beta, basically. It's like early access for Steam.
Right. Let's see how many different names the gaming industry come up with.
Yeah, no, it gets confusing.
Done. Right. So now that it's out of game or it's not. It's still in.
It's still game preview. Yeah.
Okay. So were you ever like attuned to, oh, there's a new patch or update or whatever coming out, like I gotta get on and play and see what the impact of that is?
The first couple I was, because this was when I was back on the OG Xbox One. I'd have a lot of problems with the textures just coming into the world. Like basically it looked like a muddled, like just like a muddy mess, like all the buildings and even the terrain and stuff. So it was like a PS1, PS2 graphics almost. And then it would pop in like after a minute or so. And a lot of rubber banding and lag when you first started out. I get some of that a little bit now still, but it's not nearly as bad. It was pretty much like every match. But now the graphics could just pop in right away. I mean, I'm assuming that's because of the X. I'm not sure how the S handles. I haven't really heard. I don't know. You had asked that, I guess, Cleese, during in our little chats on Flock, but I didn't get a chance to research if the S is any better than the original Xbox. I'm probably thinking it is a little bit, at least, because it's a little bit more powerful than the OG Xbox One. So, but yeah.
So you're referencing the S console bundle that they've announced for Xbox, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question on the patch piece, so it is out of early access on PC or Glassicles.
Yeah.
That it is official. There's a 1.0 release there, but when there's patches, and so I mean, I've heard plenty of other podcasts talk about this. In other games, in a multiplayer game, there's often like a meta, right? That there's certain weapons that have, they buff and debuff, trying to find a balance. Does that, other than the vehicle aspect of damage from hit vehicles, I mean, do you feel like is there enough of availability of weapons that you actually end up kind of hunting something down, or is there the battle royale survival aspect of this still enough that any weapon is a good weapon at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been any buffs to any of the weapons yet, and it's kind of hard to say about the availability, only because the weapons change where they're located at, like each time you go into a map, so it's randomly generated. So if there's one house in the southwest corner that was always like an AR or something like that, that'd be one thing, but they're not. So it always changes. So with my experience, and I guess unfortunately, but it always seems that I just land in like the worst area, because there's like nothing like in the surrounding houses. I have to like venture out and get something. But I don't know. That usually happens when I'm solo. But if I play like duo or mostly in squad too, I seem to find stuff a little bit more. And I don't know if that's because there's more people like on your team, or I don't know how that plays out in the background. But definitely when I'm on solo, it seems like every time I land, it's just like I'm just searching for stuff. I'm just getting like a pistol and maybe a shotgun, which is fine if you're close range. But if there's like a wide open area, you're pretty screwed at that point unless you can find something. So yeah, it hasn't been too bad so far. Any other questions for?
So if I'm the precision gamer, as Agastocles was describing me, right? I'm the guy that likes to think about. I've got a backlog. I like to think about what I'm playing. So how long does a match take, right? Like, is there an average time? Does it really, is it? Do you find that it varies based on skill levels? If I'm going to schedule some time to try this, what kind of time should I allot?
So if you make it in, so you start off with 100. So if you can make it into the top 10, I'd say at least, maybe even 15, you're looking at least probably 15 to 20 minutes. And then maybe like another 25, probably like 25. I would even say 30, probably like 25 minutes once that top 10 is reached. Because then the circle that it shrinks down into is pretty small at that point. So it's pretty quick after that. And I think it's like a minute and a half or so, maybe even just a minute. I think it counts down near the end where it's the circle's about to shrink. So yeah, I'd say about 20 minutes on average. So yeah, I mean, if I only got like an hour and a half that I could play something at night, I mean, that's probably only like 3 games, maybe maybe 4, which is fine, I guess, during the week. Obviously on the weekend you could do a little better, but yeah, I mean, if you jump in there and you get killed right away, that's probably like 5 minutes. So yeah, you got to carve out a good chunk of time on there. And then as far as I guess, Cleese, I know you're saying, you want to be, not that you want to be sold on it, but this game is not really like a run and gun shooter. You can't really do that. You have to be a little bit more stealthy and, careful on how you, and I don't know if that's the kind of game you like to, play, but that's the kind of game it is, or you can play it like that. You can run a gun, I guess, if there's big pools or big areas in the game where,
So when you say you have to be stealthy and a little tactical, are we talking like Rainbow Six Vegas?
Yeah, because you can pretty much die in one hit in the head and you're dead pretty much.
So it's a game that arguably you could and maybe should play like Rainbow Six Vegas, but lots of people are also running around playing it like Battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the school. There's a school, and then there's a military base where obviously it's a larger area. So a lot of times, you're going to hit, a lot of people are going to hit that. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll just go in there and say, what the heck, I'm just going to go for it, especially just at the beginning of the night. And other times, if I've been playing for a while, I'll just try to go off to the side, somewhere where most likely it's not going to be, a lot of people, and try to, do it stealthy and stuff like that. So
that makes sense. I mean, right, because this was an Arma mod is what it started as, right? So right. This is so that's where its roots are in terms of that type of gameplay.
Yeah, it's definitely not a gun sponge type of game. You're not going to soak in a lot of bullets. You're going to die after, a few hits. So But
Okay.
I would say, like, if I had a group of people that I knew, it would be a lot better. And I have some people that I've met online that have actually been pretty cool that I've been able to get with, and we get pretty far. But if you're just with a bunch of randoms, it's definitely you're going to struggle a little bit, especially if nobody's talking. But most of the time, people are talking, so that's nice. It's good.
DB, I'm having a hard time detecting whether or not he was swiping at us for not having gotten PUBG on Xbox One.
There's been a little bit there, a little bit of a swipe.
Well, there is a reason that it has 4 million, 6 million, active users at different points in time, right? I mean that we begin to become the minority in terms of it. There is a critical mass of people playing this game. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely.
Yeah, you can definitely find people if you can. Like I said, this is a perfect game for that looking for groups section on the Xbox.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a big whole list of people that get on there, and there's little like hashtags and stuff that people put on there for if they want to be serious, if they want to just have fun and stuff like that. So.
Oh, good.
So it's nice.
So I hate to switch the beat on you, but DB and I need to talk about the Nintendo Switch. Usually that's you.
Wait a minute.
But, yeah.
I'll say my piece on that later.
So I got into a mascot ton of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe over the weekend. I think I played like about 4 hours worth of Mario Kart 8. It is a thing that I had not dived. But I hadn't dived deep on.
You have not dove deep.
and I'm not absolutely certain that I'm playing it the right way.
Okay, first, are you playing motion controls or are you playing with? Okay, so then you're playing it the right way. You're playing with analog sticks.
I like motion controls. At least on the Wii, I did.
Okay. So no, I actually played with my Joy-Con Grip Charge over the weekend. So I played, and maybe I don't know if playing single player is the right way. I don't know if this is a game that's really meant to be multiplayer. I played through the 50cc championship, all like 12. I had played some of them before, but I played all 12 championships or completed all 12 championships. Kind of neat. The game gives you a little like game complete montage after you complete the last of the 50cc. But I wasn't really challenged. So DBQ, I know you have it. Does the game it played very much like an old style Need for Speed game where like if you just have like where you win every race. So there were moments of challenge that I found interesting, but I spent the vast majority of the time out in front of the pack, and I don't know does that dynamic. I mean, there's no difficulty slider as far as I can tell in the game.
Okay, so I guess there's another question about kind of your familiarity with the Mario Kart series.
Very low.
So 50cc's is your easy mode. Then you have 100 and 150. And so really that's, the 150 is where you're going to kind of push yourself, where we're nailing a drift, we're finding that right line, where, being able to bump off a bumper when you're upside down to get a boost is going to be, those things make a difference. And then actually in 8 Deluxe and also in a DLC pack for the Wii U, they added a 200 cc's. So then it's even the whole gameplay experience is much faster there. So
okay, in those higher cc's, the AI racers tend to stay closer and give you more of a challenge. Okay,
yes,
great. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I think I think the one kind of disincentive that I've found with 8 on the Switch is that I think everything unlocks for you from the get-go, right? So when I played this on the Wii U, the reason I know the 150 and keep going up is that you needed to do that in order to unlock certain characters, to unlock certain racers. And so when everything's unlocked, then you kind of have to just set that for yourself and decide where you're at with it.
Yeah, and I'm on the fence with that. I mean, I've played a ton of racing games over my life that have had the standard unlock incentive. I'm okay with having one that doesn't lean that heavily on that, because it's you could kind of think of it as tropish or pedantic or just like it's fine. It would be different in like a sim style racer where when you unlock the cars are really something special. Now, again, this is my perspective from playing the 50cc, so I haven't had the experience of like one. I mean, I saw because I had to dive into some guides over the weekend just to understand. I hit the point where I was like, okay, kind of casually understanding what the weapons are is no longer sufficient. I really wanted to understand them. I still don't understand what the stars are about in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Where when a race ends, you hit an X to increase your number of stars. I don't know what the point of that is. But I did see like in sections of guides that talked about like, you know, how to optimize your cart configuration. So I guess some of those things are better than others. I know I liked driving the motorbikes because they were just a little different, but I didn't like how they handled. Like I guess overall I preferred being in the car for the racing itself. But for the visuals, I kind of like the motorcycles from that aspect. But I didn't really like their physics model and their driving style. So I don't know.
I don't think there's a difference, right, TB?
So there's a little bit of a difference in so they rate everything by acceleration, top speed, handling, weight. And so bikes are a little, you know, their handling is a little tighter, their weight is lighter, you know, so there is some cornering aspects are a little different. You know, I don't know that it's enough that it suddenly makes it a huge game changer. But I think that there are those stats there, and kind of min-maxing that is something that's possible within this version, where in other versions, you know, previous to Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS, that, you know, those stats were not necessarily there. So the characters, the traditional aspect of, right, you had like the medium class of Mario, the heavy class of Bowser, and the light class of Toad, right? It was kind of the standard piece, which, you know, top speed versus acceleration. So not a whole lot of difference there. So yeah, I'm kind of curious at the fact that you dove into a Mario Kart guide to get a better handle on the game, because it is, you know, the nice thing about having the unlocks is that it really is designed as, it's almost like a party game where anybody could pick up and play the different modes. You know, even if I'm making a joke about the motion controlled steering piece, that it's still something that makes it accessible for a wider audience. So did you play with your family at all, or
I didn't. I still have not given the family access or awareness of the Switch. My oldest daughter knows about it because our typical morning paradigm on weekends is I'm always up early, so I'm typically down here in the Geek Command Center, frequently gaming if I'm up early enough. And she will come in, you know, when she gets up, and she has seen me playing Skylanders Imaginators, which I mentioned before, and that's a game that I'm comfortable with her being exposed to. So no, it was just solo play. When they have the Pong set, I got them that for Christmas, and we have played that a few times on Saturday and Sunday mornings. But before I let them have access, you know, some level of global access to the Switch, that will be a separate Switch unit. So my reason for diving into the guides was kind of as you mentioned, right? The part of the thing about Mario Kart and part of the allure of the Switch is there are lots of people who have had this lifelong exposure to it, right? There are people who have played every version. You know, people in our demographic, right, have played every version of Mario Kart, and they have this whole history. That was also one of the interesting articles I found was this whole lineage, right? So they talked about cars, tracks, characters, and weapons, especially. That I think you can actually see. I think there's some type of lettering on the screen that tells you for the tracks what version of Mario Kart those tracks were introduced. So I thought that was pretty neat. It's a game with a rich history, and that's what kind of hooked me into diving into it. I had to dive into it because like I did not flipping understand what the coin did when it's picked up as a weapon power up, and that was just driving me nuts because in 50cc. When you're in the front of the pack, when you're 50cc, when you're in the front of the pack, you generally are only going to see bananas, triple bananas. And you see that you get the coin like I'd say like 70% of the time. So I just hit a point where I was like, I have to understand why I'm running around the track like carrying this coin like in my left hand. So I came to understand that. So games I'm going to mention, but I'm not going to discuss just because I want to kind of give a complete picture of my playlist. Is I played a little bit of Destiny 1 on Xbox One. Finally powered up the PlayStation 3 for the first time this calendar year and played Rainbow Six Vegas 2. I played a little bit more of the single player campaign. And I also played some Blur on the PlayStation 3, which caused me a little wonkiness because Blur is a little more. It's definitely a less cartoony graphic style, made by Bizarre Creations, who unfortunately were bought by Activision shortly thereafter and then shut down. Actually, this was their only They were bought shortly after they released Project Gotham Racing 4 for the 360, and then they made this game, and then they were shut down. But Blur obviously has a different take on weapons-based car racing. So I did that, and then I switched to Mario Kart 8. I actually kind of prefer Blur from a stylistic standpoint, but Mario Kart 8 was plenty of fun too. So DB, you also spent some time on the Nintendo Switch.
I did, but can I go back to Blur for a minute? Because I remember when Blur and Split Second came out, right? And Split Second's been on Xbox Live, Gold Games with Gold.
Yep.
But Blur did have kind of more realistic weapon type of dynamic to it, but it still kind of fit within that Mario Kart motto almost. When you've played them so close together, do you see those parallels, or does it feel like, can you see where something took inspiration from, where Blur took inspiration from Mario Kart?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of that dynamic for those style of games and the thing that makes them exciting, particularly with Blur for me, is that it's not over till it's over, right? You can be out in front, leading the pack, heading to win the race, and in Blur, I'll talk about more because I understand that weapon system a lot better than Mario Kart. Like, somebody pops off a lightning, right, and it puts out these big columns of lightning out in front of whoever's in the lead, and you can hit one of those and lose a race. So that can sometimes be frustrating. By the same token, you can be in third place and pop off a lightning or fire like a guided plasma round and take out the leader and wind up pulling off a last-second win. So it's incredibly exciting, and it's white knuckle all the way down to the very end. I look forward to getting that experience in Mario Kart 8, like you said, and so I'm very glad to hear the information that you don't really get that in 50cc, but you should expect to see that progressively as you get into the 100, 150cc. You also get that, you really kind of get that a lot in almost all weapons-based gamers, but also on the Switch, you get that in, I'm getting all these games mixed out with Wipeout, Redout on the PC, and FMX Fast, I think it's called, on the Nintendo Switch, or RMX.
RMX, right? Yep, yes, RMX.
Yeah. Yep. Which is another game that I have on the Switch that I played a great deal of. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. So I've been playing Switch mainly because, as I said in the opening, right, my basement has been flooded and everything has been stored in various components and compartments around my house. So the beauty of the Switch is that I don't necessarily need to have a static setup to be able to keep enjoying and keep playing. So first I want to talk about something that I played with my family, actually. It's just talking about kind of who we are as gamers and sharing this love and our hobby with our family. So I played a lot of Puyo Puyo Tetris with my wife and I. We used to play Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine back at some point in time in our history. So I knew that this was a game that we'd both enjoy. In the chaos of the rest of our life in terms of a flooded basement, something kind of as simple and straightforward as a puzzle game has really been kind of a stress relief, and that's been nice for the two of us to kind of joke and laugh and hang out and spend some time doing that. Right, tomorrow's Valentine's Day, so play some games with your significant other. But actually, the other nice thing about it is that it has a really streamlined and robust. I can't really have both of those, right? Really accessible and robust multiplayer. So both my kids, all four of us have been playing a variety of different game modes, and the combination where you can play Puyo Puyo, which is kind of the match colors, kind of the combination of Bejeweled and Dr. Mario, and Tetris, that you can play either one. And so it's been a great, really accessible game. Just even last night that we've been playing, my wife and I started playing for a while, and as my kids, each of them finished up with their homework, they picked up a Joy-Con and joined in. And so by the end of the night, it was all four of us kind of laughing and joking with each other and, listening to somebody complain about something that happened as we're playing a versus mode against each other. So again, it's not a super complicated game, but it's been a nice kind of accessible game for bringing in the rest of the family who we don't always necessarily have a chance to play together. So that's been really nice.
So have you? So I haven't followed. I guess I have the sense that Tetris is kind of like its own cult in and of itself. So have you played other? And so I have a hard time understanding the lineage, right? So is this a Tetris game, or is this somebody else who has taken advantage of what I guess Tetris is no longer like licensed. It's past its point where they can leverage copyright. So
this is if there is an official Tetris license, it's got it, right? So this is this is the Tetraminos. This is it traces its lineage back to the NES Tetris very much, right? That this is Sega it's a combination of Nintendo and Sega published this. Puyo Puyo is a Sega-based puzzle game. Tetris, at one point in time, Ubisoft had it, the rights to it. Nintendo had it. I think really the last Tetris game that I've owned was probably Tetris DS. So way back in the early DS Lite days, Tetris, kind of both with the dual screens, was there. So this is kind of the party game combination. There is simply just you could play either one. There's actually a single player story mode, which my son, who's been home sick with the flu, actually finished over some point in time. So it's been kind of a presence in our house in terms of whether we're humming some Tetris or joking about so you can play both classic Tetris, or you can play Puyo Puyo, or in a multiplayer game, you can play either one of them and kind of mix and match.
So does this have Kirby in it?
No. So this, not that I'm aware. It's got a whole bunch of like kind of cheesy, kind of cartoony anime type of people. But really, all they do is show up at the beginning of a match and at the end of a match as like your character portrait. So
okay. I'm asking because as I was fact checking, I guess Puyo is actually in urban slang is a word that was used by Kirby in the anime. I guess you can say Puyo.
We got a whole lot deeper on Puyo Puyo Tetris than I ever expected us to get tonight on this podcast.
There's our nerd moment.
So to rinse that out of our mouths, I'd like you to go ahead, because you have 4 games in your rundown. Go ahead and talk to us about NBA 2K18, because then that will kind of set us up to rotate to Prime, who also has a sports game to talk about.
Sure. Yes. No, that sounds great. So before the flood of January happened to me, I was chipping away and finishing up a season in MLB The Show 17, which was actually my second highest played PlayStation 4 game of last year. It's spring training, or it's starting off as spring training, so it seemed appropriate. But I wanted a sports game to kind of jump back into, and so NBA 2K on the Switch. Again, it runs at about 30 frames per second, pretty locked there, versus the 60 on consoles. It's handles really, really well. So I had rented it back when it released in the fall, and I had not really played a lot of a 2K game. So the technicalities of that were something that I didn't necessarily have time in the busy game release schedule of the fall to dive into. So I've taken the time to kind of get used to the right stick shooting in terms of flicking it forward, holding it backwards, getting a sense of where that sweet spot is to make a layup or to take an outside perimeter shot. So yeah.
Now you can do button-based shooting too, can't you?
Yes. Actually, when I played it in the fall, I did button-based shooting, and I kind of ended up doing stick shooting on accident, and then realized how comfortable it felt, how kind of natural it felt to kind of have a little bit of a rhythm to your shot, right? As I think about my follow-through, right. So the button-based shooting, one of the things I've also played through NBA, or the one story mode in NBA Live, one of the things there is the shot icon there is pretty prominent, where in the 2K series, it hasn't always been that prominent. In 18, it's a little more prominent, so it makes it a little more accessible for somebody jumping in. I also knew that I wasn't going to quite sink a whole lot of time into creating a character and, going into the microtransaction chase that is the virtual currency there. I think which has been one of the biggest critiques against it in terms of, in order to level up your character, you start relatively weak. So even if you have an open shot, your stats are not so much, your stats are not great enough that you're going to always hit that shot, even if your skill level is good. So there's a reason to grind and to level up, but there's also a strong incentive to pay some real life money to get some virtual currency to level up as well.
So do you also play stick-based pitching in MLB, since that's what you bounded from?
So I have not done a whole lot of stick-based pitching. And I've actually done any. I've done the Pulse, and I've done just kind of the Classic, in part because last year was the first MLB that I had really dove into in ever. So I think maybe it may be something that this year, as I think about MLB 18, I'll probably try, given having a sense of that rhythm now. But what I ended up doing in terms of 2K at NBA was diving into the My GM mode. So this is where, right, you take you come in as the GM. You've got it basically is the sports sim aspect that as somebody who played through 20 seasons of Madden at some point in time on PlayStation 1, this is great. I'm loving it. I had there were a couple of nights where I was up past 2:00 in the morning playing, right? It has this, and you know exactly how this is, right? It has the Civ one more turn, right? So I'm simming games, right? So I you finish a game, it only takes 5 minutes. You do a couple moves, you deal with player attitudes and morale. You set up some practice schedule stuff, and you're like, well, it's not like I can get one more game in, and it's just this loop of one more game.
So now you play. So you play the shortened game format.
So right now I'm only 2 seasons in, so I don't want to sound like I'm super knowledgeable.
Right.
But I have simmed just the kind of quick sim where it's kind of bouncing back and forth, kind of simulating who's scoring what points. It's not even, I could interrupt in at any point in time and start and keep playing.
Right.
One of the cool things, 2K on a piece of paper, the 2K series is just immense, right? Because I could dive in. It's so immense that Prime just shut off his camera because we're talking sports. But it is where I could actually go in and I could play individual games, right? I could set the time of quarters and play. My skill is I'm not confident enough in terms of my defense and running offenses to kind of dive in. I think that's when I start a third season, that's probably what I'm going to try to do is actually start playing the game rather than just playing the management sim of the game. But there's a third option where you can be the coach, basically. You can be, call those plays, you can change strategies throughout. So one of the things that 2K touted in 18 was that the My GM mode has a new storyline where for the last couple of years, basically the dialogue has been pretty much the same. You're dealing with coaches, you're dealing with players, and you just kind of keep bouncing through the season. So in this one, each owner has a little backstory in terms of what their expectations are, and then you jump into the story mode, and it's got some cinematic aspects to it, and it's got a whole, the GM, the owner is looking to maybe sell the team, but maybe he's not selling the team. He wants you to make certain trade moves. He gets his hands in and dirty. He ends up selling the team at one point in time during the season, and the new owners bring in their son as an assistant GM who, there's some back and forth there. And eventually by the time you get toward the end of the season, the original owner has made a bid to buy back the team. You have the potential of relocating as well, right? So there's all this drama that's going on. And the first like couple of nights of playing it, I was loving it and thinking, oh well, I'm gonna start a new season as a different team and see how it unfolds. I went to Reddit, and it ruined the whole mirage of this. Is that the storyline is the same no matter what team you take. Maybe the person they want you to trade for is a little bit different, but the basic story beats of selling and of the drama, all of that is the same no matter who you take, and it only happens. This is the kicker. It only happens in the first season. So when you get into the second season, it ends up being the exact same dialogue and everything else that was there in 17, which I have on Steam, and it was there in 16, which I have through PlayStation Plus, right? So I went back to kind of check the other versions to see, okay, is this really different, or where's that recycled content with an annualized sports game? So while I've really been enjoying it, it's also as a new player, it super floored me and overwhelmed me with how much it was doing. And then as I started to kind of peel back those layers and realize, okay, so for somebody who's coming back to this year after year, what's really different? So that being said, it's also on the Switch, which means I can sit in bed and knock out a couple games or sim my strategy, right? So the aspect of this has been a real convenience, and I think that that's one of the benefits of the Switch overall. So yeah.
Just a quick question. So the story part of it, is that just like GM mode, or is that through like when you create a character and you can go through the whole?
So there's two separate stories, right?
So there didn't have a story mode. I thought I heard, but maybe I was wrong.
So this does. Okay. So there's the My Career, where you start off as an aspiring basketball player whose initials are DJ. No matter anything, they call you DJ because you used to be a DJ or something, right? And you wear your headphones out under the backyard court that you're get discovered at by an agent, and so there is this big kind of individual where it asks you can do a face scan, where it asks you to create somebody and take them through kind of their career, their journey into NBA stardom. So that is a separate story. So the person that back in the fall, I did create a character just because I wanted to try things out. So when I started my GM mode, it's my character, but he's retired from the game. He quit on an injury. He had an injury a career-ending injury. So it's the same kind of, character model that I created back then. That is the GM, but it's a separate story. So there is some overlay, right? I mean, they do try to leverage that kind of emotional connection that you may have with your character. So, I mean, I think that if you ever have had an interest in a basketball game, this game does a little bit of everything, and there's probably something in there for you. If you've never really had an interest in a basketball game, yeah, I mean, unless you're like me and the sports sim aspect of it suddenly got you talking about it on a podcast for 20 minutes and staying up until 2:00 in the morning. So,
yeah, I definitely feel you there because, I've always struggled. I love playing baseball games, but I always struggle because, well, number one, I'm going to have to try to get some of your mojo because one of my problems with sports games is that I am obsessive about wanting to play like the full game. Like when I go in and I see like my records, right, for the season, I feel like I need to see realistic scores, right? But I played the most baseball games in a version of MLB that was on the PlayStation Portable. So yeah, that convenience aspect definitely helps. Osiris Prime, 3 minutes on the clock to talk to us about Rocket League.
All right, good. Because, it's really quick. I've just been playing this past weekend with my son, actually on the Xbox One X. And that was at my son's request. So we played both on the Xbox and the Switch, but he wanted to play on the Xbox because he has more cars unlocked. And like me, he likes to go and change every little thing on the car like I do. So I've taught him well. So yeah, we played, we just do exhibition. We just do a bunch of exhibition matches. So that was fun. He actually got a couple goals, so he was really excited about that. He's actually he's getting a lot better with it. So he's actually moving the car and kind of switching between. You can lock the view on just kind of like a third person behind the car, or you can just focus on the ball the whole time. So he's been able to switch back and forth between that now a little bit better. So it's really cool.
So,
and yeah,
so your guys' style of play, I just want to ask, so are you guys focused on playing the soccer part of it, or are you more focused on like the stunt car kind of Matchbox car aspect of it?
No, just the regular sports part of it. Yeah, we're not doing any stuff. I can't even do any of those weird stunts that I've seen people do on some of these videos. It's just amazing. But every once in a while, I can kind of like glide through the air a little bit. But I've seen people like corkscrew and like doing all these flips and stuff. I can't do that, at least not yet. So maybe one day. But yeah. And speaking of which, I just saw today that they're gonna have release a Hot Wheels little RC Rocket League toy set. So I guess you can control the cars through like your phone, and then I guess the ball has a little sensor too to keep track of like the scores and stuff. So I put that on my Christmas list already. So already hinted.
Very nice. So I'm going to roll on to my number 2 game, Etrian Odyssey 5: Beyond the Myth. Fortunately, Swissguard is not here to chastise me once again for making an effort to play a Japanese RPG. But I was attracted by the notion of what I read was some level of tactical depth, the turn-based combat part of it. It took me a while to get into that meat of it. There's a lot of setup, as there always is, a lot of lengthy exposition, as there always is. But once I got into combat, I thought that was pretty satisfying. Just in terms of like tactically aligning like what your sequence of attacks is going to be. You can do dual attacks, so you can pair characters in your party to launch combo attacks on a specific enemy. One of the things that I'm struggling with a little bit, and this is where I'm going to talk about this more on Mass Effect, but it's very obtuse in terms of like how you save. So I have saved multiple times. There's a game save option in the menu, but then there's also this thing of when you go back to town, if you sleep overnight in the inn, then you can do a game save there. Those two functions don't appear to be the same. And I'm also trying to figure out, when I go into a dungeon, even if it's on the surface, but an adventure level, is the whole point that I have to play it through all in one sitting. Because it seems like when I save and I then wake up at the inn and I say, okay, I want to go back and continue that adventure, it's not a continue. I'm reset right back at the beginning of the dungeon. So that's been a little frustrating, but I like the gameplay style. I've just got to get my head wrapped around exactly how you're supposed to play it, which is one of the things that I dislike about Japanese RPGs.
Okay, so I'm laughing because you reference guides for Mario Kart, but for this obtuse graphing, dungeon mapping kind of legacy game of a train Odyssey, the internet's off limits. You're going to figure this out. You're going to.
It's a bit of a paradox. So, but here's my thing on Mario. When I went to look up the thing on Mario Kart, I went to look up a spot thing, and as I expected, it was in a section of the guide that was clearly delineated in the table of contents, right? And it was a section up front. It was like weapons. I haven't gone digging for that stuff in Etrian Odyssey 5 because I don't think it's going to be that clear, and I think I'm going to have to dumpster dive and spend time in a guide. That's what I don't like doing. Like, the Mario Kart thing, I looked it up on my phone right now. It's back in the game in 5 minutes. Now, I wound up doing some kind of Wikipedia serpentine surfing, right? The same as I would do if I was looking up the history of like one of my favorite television shows, but I wasn't doing that to figure out how to play the game. But like I said, I have some other comments about that when we get to Mass Effect. But I think it's a decent fall release from last year that I didn't get around to, and that's why I picked it up, because there's not a lot of new releases so far this year, so I had kind of some time to go back and check out this title. DB, you've been playing.
I'd be interested to see if you stick with it or come back to it. So it's in theory a game that I always liked the concept of, but I've played the original or the second one, I think, and the eShop often had demos for it. So
I'm definitely going to come back to it. It's a matter of figuring out, is this they're Destiny, right? I don't feel like playing Destiny for 30 minutes at a pop is an effective gameplay mode, right? But I tried that with Etrian. It could very well be that it's the type of game that you need to block off like an hour to 2 hours to actually get something out of it. So, DB, you've been playing a game that is very much in the zeitgeist right now, also on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, so I'll quickly talk a little bit about Celeste, right? So if you've listened to any other podcast over the last 3 weeks, there's been plenty of people that have probably talked about Celeste. So it's this, going from a train odyssey where you need to dive deep and really invest some time. Celeste is quick and fast, and it saves after each stage or after each map screen. This is Super Meat Boy. It is by the creators of Towerfall Ascension. It is a beautifully kind of 16-bit animated, 16 8-bit animated with a great kind of retro soundtrack, some really tight controls, and a lot more depth in that kind of hard masochistic platforming type of action. But I think the one thing, and the reason I want to mention, is the one thing that it does that's really smart is the way that it does an assist mode. So it tells you, you can turn on the assist mode at any point in time. It doesn't penalize you for doing it. It says, that this is not the way we designed it, but we want you to experience our game. So you could turn on invisibility. You could turn on only one more dash. You could turn on unlimited dashes, right? So you can kind of tailor it to, again, this is a game that my wife ended up picking up and playing because of the assist mode, right? She started in the terribly hard aspect and got frustrated, and then realized that there was an assist mode, and then just kind of enjoyed the platforming aspect of it for a little while.
So that was the question. Would you call this a platformer? So that's apparently the case.
Yeah, no, it's very much a platformer. Yep, it's that tight kind of retro platformer, the N+ type of aspect game that's there. So yeah, so it's I'm sure it'll pop up on sales, but again, for people that have enjoyed some type of the retro platformer action aspect, it's a really solid game and deserves the praise that it's been getting. So
yeah, that's interesting about the assist mode, because I know I heard it mentioned on, I think, well, at least one other podcast I was listening to, and they didn't really go into the detail like you just went into. That's cool that you can like switch off things and stuff. They just basically said it's an easy mode, and that was it. I was like, okay, what does that mean? But it's nice that you can like switch off different things. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's been really, I mean, you can grab on walls and you have stamina, so you can, you start to slide and fall off. You can turn that on so you have unlimited stamina, so you can hang onto a wall as long as you need to figure out where to make your next jump, right? So my son has turned on a lot of the assists. I've ended up just kind of settling on with, I want the extra dash to be able to make it over, to give myself a little bit of a leeway. So it's been kind of fun to be able to tailor that experience to individuals so that the game is accessible for everybody. So you also have been playing, Prime, you've been playing some an even newer game than that on the Nintendo Switch. So Dragon Quest Builders, correct?
Yes, I picked this up. So this was a Minecraft / RPG game. So you can build stuff on here. But there's an overall arc of a story that's behind all this. Nothing super fantastic, at least as far as I've seen so far. But I mean, at least there's a story on like Minecraft where you just kind of you do whatever you want. And here, excuse me, here I haven't even seen if there's a section like this where you can, just build whatever you want in this world. It's pretty much just been a story where you can kind of build stuff, around the story. So that's pretty cool. I like that. And I've been playing this pretty much since it came out on this past Friday, at least every other day or so. I haven't played it every day, but I've put in maybe like 3 or 4 hours into it or so.
So I've played when it was on PlayStation 4 and Vita when it first released, and I know that you've also played. Like, obviously, you've played a lot of Minecraft and enjoyed that, but you also played Lego Worlds. Kind of, how does this fall for you in terms of your enjoyment? In terms of the flexibility, there is a free build mode as well.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if I just haven't seen that part, or I don't know if it's like tucked away in the menu somewhere I'm not seeing.
Yeah, maybe you need to unlock it after a certain stage in the story mode. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it just boots up into here, pick like whatever level you're at. But I've only hit like one town so far, so I only have the one town to go to.
Or the thing that could be interesting, because this happens on Switch games, is that possible that mode was truncated in the Switch version.
Possible, but I didn't hear anything about that. I would assume they would have said something. I would think, but
yeah, but there are games like I'm trying to think which one. FIFA, right? So that's the criticism of FIFA is some people claim that FIFA 18 on the Switch is not like the complete FIFA game, and so it sometimes reviews lower than and gets gigged for not being a full FIFA. And I'm like, well, it should be judged as FIFA on the Switch, right? And that should be compared to FIFA like on another platform. So
I think that was the game I was thinking of that doesn't have a story mode. I think it's the FIFA.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I was confusing that with the NBA. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying this a little bit more, just because, like I said, that there is a story behind everything, and that's kind of the one thing in Minecraft that. So there's like creative mode and survival mode in Minecraft. Creative, obviously, you just have everything unlocked, and I just don't like that because it doesn't seem like a game to me at that point. And I like a gamey game. I want to have something to, a goal, some kind of goal that I can, unlock stuff where I have to get certain materials to build things. So
and this is that, because that was the thing I was going to ask you: is there a game to this, or is it an experience?
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely unlocking, different tools and what you can craft and stuff like that, and just kind of moving the story along. And you can, I've teleported to this other world on this past play session that I did, and I've advanced my tool. So now I'm going to be able to start to do. I think I was basically just still in the tutorial mode, and now I'm starting to, they kind of just let me loose in the world. So it's getting a lot better.
Very cool. Very cool. So I'm going to wrap up with Mass Effect. I got one alibi to go back and mention something else about Etrian Odyssey. I wrote this up in my YouTube synopsis for the videos that I shot of it. One thing that's really weird to me about Etrian Odyssey is it seems like 90% of the character templates are female, which is fine. It just feels a little weird. And I don't know if that's on purpose or what. So I don't know. It was one of the things in the ESRB rating is it mentions like suggestive content, and I'm like, so is there like some like weird, funky like stuff coming that I haven't like encountered yet, or what? But I just wanted to throw that out. So the game that I dug out of the backlog locker was Mass Effect recently. Playing that via Origin. It is a game that I definitely didn't get into on the Xbox 360 in the heyday. There were too many things that came out in 2007. There was Halo 3. There was Project Alpha Racing 4. The original Assassin's Creed came out that year, and I jumped into that. So there were a lot of things that I felt were more accessible than Mass Effect, which seemed kind of coming at things from kind of a weird angle. And I've never been a huge fan of. I'm trying to get back and revisit that of I'll say first person RPGs. Although this is third person. I'm sorry. I have one more alibi to mention on Etrian. The other thing I like about Etrian Odyssey is I used to play a lot of the old like Dungeons and Dragons style. I guess they were BioWare RPGs, and one of the things I used to love is creating a party of 6 people. So you get that in Etrian Odyssey. And Mass Effect, you kind of don't. You get sidekicks that are kind of assigned to you as you go throughout the story. I set those for auto level. I'm not interested in managing like their careers and level ups. It's a really nice story, and one of the things that made me stick with it, and actually I had to kind of tear myself away from it, is the story feels more straightforward, linear, and accessible. Right? What I'm realizing as I'm going through this effort to kind of choke down JRPGs is, in a lot of cases, they have systems and subsystems that are very veiled, right? There are things that are going on behind the curtain that are very difficult to understand and aren't as transparent. And the problem that creates is I wind up spending a lot of time in a menu going, I don't understand whether I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing or how this is working. Mass Effect, although in the Let's Plays that I shot for it recently on the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, plug, I did spend some time in the menus, but I felt like I spent time in the menus and then figured it out and moved on. Whereas in Etrian Odyssey, I like spent time in menus and I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. But in Mass Effect, and another thing Mass Effect does by game design is it wonderfully allows leveling in the very early outset of the first mission, such that you feel like the leveling that you're doing is actually having an impact on gameplay. So my Shepard is an engineer, and engineers can only utilize pistol, which I'm not really crazy about, because I feel like Dungeons and Dragons figured that out, right? And figured out that the right thing to do wasn't to say magic users can't use swords, but it was to say magic users shouldn't use swords, and if they wear armor, they have a penalty to their magic skill, right? Which is supposed to be their primary skill. I would prefer that kind of design to just say you now can't do things. But the thing that's really cool is he's an engineer, and so he's getting these engineer skills. he is deadly accurate with the pistol. And that's like a wonderful gameplay balancing effect to feel. So I'm definitely, this may be the launching point where I go through and actually play the entire series eventually. But I had a lot of fun playing Mass Effect, even though it's an old game. Does not hold up well over time. I was a little frustrated by the fact that I've seen some very kind of janky chop games where the devs have gone back and put 4K assets in place. Mass Effect is not. In fact, it's not even 1080p. So that was a little frustrating for a game that is that popular for it not to have been cleaned up to implement some modern elements. So, DB, will end with you. With I don't even know what in the world this game is, so please tell us.
Oh, so okay, so I'll go real quick, right? This is the end. This is my my random indie plug, right? So the 80s Overdrive is a 3DS eShop game. It came out in December. I had kind of seen it. It is Outrun. Is what it looks like. It looks very much like Outrun with like a little neon coat of paint over things. But it plays like Outrun, but it's the detection physics in terms of when you get hit are pretty unforgiving. So what it ends up being is that I ended up kind of grinding to get car parts for upgrades. But for those of us who grew up plopping quarters into kind of classic 80s racers, it hits that sweet spot of nostalgia. So it's got a great kind of 80s synth soundtrack to it with a whole set of radio stations that you can listen to. It's a fun little game, kind of flew under the radar, but it's for those of us, for those of us on this podcast and at a certain age where there is some potential for nostalgia, this game definitely scratches that. So, anyhow, I think we're moving on.
We are. So that is the end of our playlist segment, which is the bulk of our gamer experience episode format. Now we're going to wrap up with the segment that Prime and DB kind of collaborated on to create, called Prime Plays. So, Osiris Prime has suggested 3 titles in his backlog, gaming collection, new playlist, whatever. He has offered them up in sacrifice to the other co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going show. It is our job to pick which one we are going to demand that he play over the next 2 weeks.
No Switch games, amazingly.
Yes, I was very
not yet.
So was that a force? Because the way this segment originally got started back on an old version, I'll call it Generation 3 of the Casual Adult Gamers podcast. Part of it was it was a horizon force, right? It was meant to force us to make the other co-hosts kind of come out of their shell and experience a game type that they may not usually play. So was this your effort to offer up to us to force you to play on Xbox One since you haven't been playing on that as much?
No, not really. When I was first thinking about doing this, for some reason I wanted to pick the Xbox. Just I don't know why. I wanted to pick like the 3 different iterations of the Xbox. So I had a 360, an Xbox One, and then what I call a live game, which is like indie arcade, what we used to call Xbox Live arcade game. So I just want to throw those out there, just to kind of have a little bit of a variety.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do this so we can wrap up and get out of here. DBQ. I'm sorry. So the games Prime offered up were Borderlands.
360. Yep.
Right. Played via backwards compatibility on Xbox One, right?
Right.
Sunset Overdrive. That's an Xbox One game. Do you know if it has Xbox One X enhancements?
Not that I recall. I don't think so.
Okay. And the third game you've offered up is Limbo. Which, DBQ, you're the historian, help me out with this. Limbo was an indie title that came out.
So Limbo was an indie title. It was an Xbox Live. It was it Summer of Arcade at one point? It was maybe in the second year of it. It got some pretty big hype. It came the year after Braid, so we're talking, I think 2008.
So it was 2010 actually.
Oh, okay.
2010. Released on 360, PlayStation 3, released for Windows, OS X, Linux, Xbox One, PS4. I guess these are backwards compatibility, or PlayStation Now, maybe. Also released on the Vita, and it's also made its way to mobile platforms.
Yes, it's kind of everywhere now.
Award-winning, if I remember correctly, was the big thing. It was talked about a lot on award shows that year, I think. Yes, actually awarded Best Visual Art from it was handed to him by Tim Schafer at the 2011 Game Developers Choice Awards.
Nice.
So, DB, what is your vote for Prime Plays?
So, as a Destiny fan, I want to go back to the original looter shooter and see if Borderlands holds up after what, a decade? You know, where do we trace our roots and if it holds up? So that's my vote.
All right. So Swissguard, as the off-show host, also still has to vote in this in an effort to avoid a numerical tie. His vote was for Limbo.
Interesting.
So, would my lovely assistant please hand me the envelope? I don't have a lovely assistant at this point. My wife is asleep. She would normally be my lovely assistant. But my vote also is for. We need to have some like Dancing with the Stars, like music, while like you're waiting to be told whether or not you're.
Okay. Who wants to be a millionaire?
Yeah, exactly.
Like swishing.
Yeah, right. My vote is for you to also play Borderlands. I could unfortunately not allow my vote to be influenced by Swissguard's effort to make you play a wonderful and highly regarded and awarded indie title. I also just kind of wanted to hear. Now, have you played Borderlands before?
I actually played it on the PC, and I probably got like a third of the way, maybe halfway, probably like a third of the way through it. So I never played on 360.
Yeah, I played on PlayStation 3, and I took it like right up near the end game, and then I was like, I don't know that I feel like taking on the final boss, so I backed out. But yeah, I'm gonna also ask you to play Borderlands.
Excellent, because that's what I wanted to play.
All right, and I'll say that I'll claim that I'm doing that in the wake of the delay of Anthem into 2019, since you won't have a Destiny-like shooter to play this year. We'll let you get your fun in now.
Nice.
So that's going to do it for us. This has been episode number 32 of the Enough to Keep Going gaming podcast, recorded this evening, February 13th, 2018, featuring co-host myself, I guess, Please Famous, DBQ Hams, and Osiris Prime. Any other thing that you guys want to plug before we get out of here?
No, we're running long, so we can wrap it up.
All right. Please join us Thursday night for the E2KG N30 Gaming News Show, where we try and get you in and out in 30 minutes or less with 6 of the biggest or most important to us gaming news stories for the week. Once again, on behalf of the E2KG Network, thank you so much for joining in with us. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and keep coming back Tuesday and Thursday nights for our gaming shows, and give us some support. Thanks again. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.